Down in Mesquite, back shoreline, all the way from the Texas Parks and Wildlife little management place that's down there, all the way over here to Cedar Bayou mouth. This whole back shoreline, great amount of grass that's in here. Terrific bait working in here. There's good fish that are working up and down this shoreline. You just have to get into the areas and locate. You got lots of shell that's down here by the mouth. You've got this little back lake that juts off back into here that's been great. We've had, water fluctuations been pretty good. It's been average on the most part, and we're starting to get our water temps and air temps back to where we were a few weeks ago. So that's playing a big part of that. We had a little front that pushed in here a day or so ago, so it kind of changed things just a hair, but not a lot. So we're kind of back onto that springtime, heading into that summertime pattern now. If this will continue to hold, main things that we were fishing all these grass potholes and on these edges out here, this close to that sand as you get closer out there toward the Mesquite Bay area. The things that we're throwing the down south Twisted Tea. We're throwing Big Papa Pearl. That's been those two have been a mainstays. Twisted Tea since last spring, so we're almost a full year into it now. Big Papa Pearl since the boat show dropped a couple of months back. So those colors have been very, very productive for us. White ice is a standby. It's a staple that's been there for us for a while. It's been productive for us. The firecracker and the burner shad, acid rain in the burner shad has been good. Another one in the original size is called Copperfield. It's a newer bait that down south has come out with, and it's been very productive for us too. Now this water that's back here on this back shoreline's got in areas it's become gin clear because it's got such great filtrations with the grass and everything that's there. So something that you want to really consider is going to more a pretty heavy translucent bait. Has a lot of sparkle and stuff into something like your Mirror Lure Little Johns in the golden red glitter has been good. Another one in the knock and tail lures has been the heavy metal, has been very good for us, especially for redfish. Redfish has been really knocking tails on the heavy metal really good. So if you have that in your box, you want to make sure that you're throwing that thing. Again, we're not throwing anything heavy. We're throwing strictly 16th ounce jig heads, working everything pretty slow through the water columns, especially targeting your potholes that are all on this back shoreline. Just really kind of pick at them. Again, we're in transition days. We're fixing to be into a full moon here in the next few days. So make sure that you have plenty of options within your box to make sure that you throw. That trend has kind of continued because we're having days that are kind of all over since we've come off the new moon. Those wild card days like that will test you to make sure that you have multiple choices of baits that you can throw in there to see what the fish are wanting. So we've kind of had a little bit of everything. We had a little bit of high pressure in, a little bit fog have rolled in, high winds have rolled in, sprinkling rain here. So we're kind of getting a little array of everything. So again, it's important to have that choices in there. And when you're working these areas like that, make sure that your majors and minors are in play for your fishing day. Just off the Paul's Mott area, the shoreline here, as you head back down toward Allen's Bight area, you've got great amount of grass that's pushed up in here. Bait's starting to show up into this area. So it's not going to be too much longer before we'll start seeing these bull tides pushing here. Probably late next month, I would imagine that's probably around about the right time frame that you'll start to see lots of extra water pushed in here, and that's exactly what that is. It's the bull tides that starts pushing in. It starts to push fresh Gulf water into our bay systems to flush these things and to just give them a shot of energy into the bay systems. And then what happens with that, you start having a bait migration starts rolling in behind it. More bait starts rolling into the system. Therefore, more predator fish start rolling in right behind them into our system as well. So as our spring continues to move along toward the summertime, things will continue to get better and better as you'll have more opportunities. You have a lot more bait choices to look at and throw around and in. This area up here on St. Joe's is one of the markers that I kind of look at and gauge is when you really, you go up there and fish and you may see, a handful of bait here or there. Then you roll up in there about a week later. Next thing you know, you just see rafting mullet up and down there, and you see menhaden getting chased by jacks and everything like that. So that's when things really get going and getting excited. So this is one of the areas that you really want to target during that time frame, especially moving further into the springtime and into the summertime. All this area here, take advantage of that grass, and that's the primary thing that no matter where we're fishing, whether it's north, whether it's south, whether it's in the middle areas like here, all these areas here that's been holding mud and grass, and it's starting to kind of push towards your shell, more like your shell reefs and shell bars. A little bit of fish is starting to show back up on those. Not a lot, but there are a few that are starting to show up there. And I would, as our water temps begin to get warmer and that bait becomes more prevalent into these areas like this, that types of area will begin to have more and more fish show up. So when you get opportunities as we move forward into the next few weeks, if you have a favorite reef area, favorite pads and stuff like that you may want to check out and just to see if the fish have moved in and up on top of that. That's pretty much all you can do. But again, the grass has been the 100% area where we've been locating the majority of our fish. In and around those little satellite pockets that are out there off these edges, the deeper edges, up in the heavier grass, it's closer to the shoreline. Again, it's kind of predicated in some of these areas. Just have to kind of pay attention to what's going on to it. Allen's Bight out here on this point, you've got lots of great opportunities up in here. And then if you like to get back up in the back side of Allen, you can get in the back lakes that are all back in these areas here, the back little lake that's there. Either one of these side shorelines, just kind of depending on what your wind's doing. You want to get back in these lakes here and check all these areas out there. There's been some scattered fish in here, redfish, trout we've caught. But again, grass has been the ticket. When you've been finding a high concentration of grass in areas that's got potholes that are holding some good bait that's in there, you're locating fish. So again, the burner shads by down south, because we got a little transition. We're fixing to head into that full moon phase, because you want to make sure that you downsize those baits during that time frame. Fish are predominantly night feeders, so your time frames on what you're going to really want to target, it's going to be early morning periods and going to be late evening periods. So those are the two time frames. If you're able to get on the water during those time frames, you'll do yourself a favor as we get in and around that full moon. Also, again, the knock and tail and the heavy metal, the greenback has been good, watermelon red, and that's been good. And of course, rogue. The rogue flavor has been really good for knock and tail, so make sure that you have a couple of those. In the down south, the Twisted Tea, Big Papa Pearl, those have been the mainstays for us in these particular colors as we moved into the springtime. Marker 54 jerk shrimp has been a very good choice as well, especially in and around that grass. Just work that thing, free line it, work it over those potholes. Just let it fall down into those potholes and work it off the bottom. You'll be surprised how many flounder you'll probably pick up with that as well, since our flounder numbers seem to be much better this year than in years past. So anyhow, again, majors and minors has been the key focus for us, and no matter what time we're fishing into our fishing day, to help us find, to locate, and continue to catch fish. Up in Mission Bay, Mission Lake, all the Mission River, these little edges around here, up here around the mangroves and the shell on either side of your opening on this side as well, all very wadeable. Again, if you've heard videos from the past that I've talked about up here in Mission, this whole side over on the northwest side of Mission Bay is really super soft. So you may just want to stick to drifting or using your trolling motor up in this area here. But if you want to get up by the river, the Mission River, and get on that back shoreline of Mission Bay and then over into Mission Lake, all those areas there are very, very wadeable, and you can wade that back shoreline. And the thing is, you'll start to find some of these better redfish that will roll up back into the river area, as you get back up into Mission River. And there's some little back lake mouths that come off of that river right there that's accessible, that you can locate some really nice redfish back up in those areas. Mission Lake is probably one of my more favorable areas I like to fish. It's nice, soft, muddy, sandy, got a little scattered grass bottom that's in there, and some shell. It's a pretty decent sized little lake. You can get on the edges over there on that shoreline, and you can wade all that area there. You get into a little squishy mud around mid-foot, maybe ankle deep, but it's very wadeable, and you can get in there and get after it. Topwater baits have been pretty good, getting a lot of activity with that, especially with our water temps starting to warm back up like they were a few weeks ago, before we had a couple of little cold fronts that came in there and kind of cooled everything back off. But now we're starting to get, again, I mentioned in the first video, back in the springtime pattern, that water temps are starting to get into the mid 70s and creeping up to the upper 70s as we get more sunlight on those. It's just weather thing is going to predict that for us, so you just have to pay attention to what's going on with that and proceed accordingly. But when you get back up in the lake area or the back shoreline area, just take your time, work that. There's going to be opportunities that arise for you. Again, there's lots of baits and lots of these different estuaries that are showing up, and there's going to be more and more and more of it as we move forward in the coming weeks. But again, we've been back in these areas here. The topwater bite's been pretty good. When that's kind of tapered off or we hadn't gotten the action into it, that's when we're starting to kind of really pepper with the double D's been good back in this area there, so we can really make that bait get down there and just kind of suspend, and we get those opportunities when that bait does that. And again, down south lures and flavors that I've mentioned earlier, both the knock and tail in the lures and flavors there. The jerk shrimp has been very good, especially back in these areas here. You want to get on that back shoreline with that jerk shrimp. And if you want to work it under popping cork, you can. It's fine. It works very good that way. I like to free line it myself and just kind of bounce it off the bottom, bounce it off the shore, see those potholes, and just let it work down into those potholes. And we've had very good success with those particular baits doing that. So get you a couple of packages of those and go to town working on those. You can get in the river with it, and you can work it if you want to work your corks there, or down the edges up here in Mission, or back out here on the mouth, down along these edges here where all the mangroves and there's scattered shell and mud. All these, it's all produced some fish. Trout have been pretty good. Flounder, again, we've caught a few flounder out of there, and of course redfish have been pretty good as well. So again, majors and minors, preach it all the time. Make sure that you're incorporating that in your fishing day to help you continue to be successful throughout your fishing day.